Hello everyone, today we're going to be going over encapsulation, and it can also be referred to as data hiding. And essentially it's a way that we can basically show or hide data from one class to another class. So let's look into it. So as I said, encapsulation is a way that we can hide or show data from certain classes. So data hiding is very important in computer science, and in Java we can use certain things called access modifiers to actually do this, and we'll discuss that in each of the next slides. So note that this is not to be confused with cybersecurity. So when we talk about hiding data, we don't necessarily mean the same thing as what people would say when they would use like a password to hide certain things on their computer. It's just not the same thing. And you'll see that in a bit. So first of all, what are access modifiers? So you actually have already used these, but you didn't exactly know what you were doing when you were using them. So now we'll go over that. So remember that you would use certain things like private for variables in your class, and public for methods, or private for instance variables at least, and public for methods that you would want to call later. So there are actually 4 different access modifiers. In addition to private and public, there's also protected and package. So each of these keywords has a special meaning in Java, and there are some common conventions with using them. So package doesn't actually have a common keyword like the other ones. Like if you said protected, it would also be another keyword. But if you omit the modifier, by default, it will be package. So what do each of these 4 terms mean? So here in this table, we can see what would be visible to other classes, or how much would be visible to what classes based on the modifier that you use. If you use public, you can use any of that code anywhere else, in any file, anywhere. If you use the protected keyword, you can only use all those variables and methods, or that you use the modifier protected for, in the package and any class that is a subclass of the class that you're writing. In addition, you can also do it in the package or in the current class, of course. So if you use the package modifier, it will only be visible in the current package and the current class, of course. Finally, if you use the keyword private, you can only use it in the current class. Notice that each step decreases in a level of where that certain thing that you want to use the modifier on is visible. So public would be visible everywhere, protected would be only visible in certain places, package would be limited to even less places, and finally private would only be visible in your class. So here's a more visual diagram of basically what would be going on. So let's say you had 3 packages, package A, package B, and package C. And in package A you had class 1, class 2, class 3, package B has class 4 and 5, and package C has class 6. So if you let's say made class 3 have a public variable A, a protected variable B and C, and a protected variable B, made a package variable C, and then a private variable D. So here, this A would be visible everywhere. You can see that since all the boxes have a red box around them. The protected variable B can only be viewed in the classes that are extending it or that are in the same package. So you can see that in package B, class 4 can view all the protected variables from class 3. Class 1 can also view it even though it does not extend class 3, but because it's in the same package. Thirdly, we have C. Variable C can only be viewed within the package. So you can see only the classes inside the package A are circled with a orange box. Finally, the variable D can only be viewed or used in the box or in the class 3. So you can see that only the box for class 3 has a red or has a green box around it. So exactly what would we do in Java to get this? So it turns out that you can just use those words. So we've already used private and public, for example, when we were creating instance variables and methods. The protected keyword also works the same way. So if you use the protected keyword, then you would just write protected void print hello, for example. Similar to how you would normally write maybe public void print hello or private void print hello. If you want to use a package, then you can have to completely omit the modifier. So you can see in the final example, void print by is only visible in the package that you write the class. So here are some conventions that you should know. For fields and attributes, specifically more instance variables, you should always set them as private. And instead use setters and getters to change or modify them or access them. For methods, you should always use the smallest visibility that you need to get what you need to do done. So if you only need a class to be private, then, if you only need, for example, a certain part of a class to be private, only make it private. You should never make something more visible than it needs to be. So for an example, you can visit the link right there to see an example of what this would mean. Okay, so your exercise 1 is to write a class called pathLength. So the constructor should take an array of points, and it should basically, by points, we mean x and y values. It should also have a method to find the length of a path made by a straight line through those points. So for example, if you wanted to get a path, you would just have to put in the points into the method and it would calculate the total length or the distance of the path. Then to do that method, you should use a distance method that finds the distance between 2 points when given their coordinates. So if you give the method the x value and the y value of the first point and the x value and the y value of the second point, you can calculate the distance between those 2 points. So you should make sure to restrict the access of the two arrays as well as the distance method. And you should make sure to restrict them how to match with the conventions that were discussed on the previous slide. So this example isn't too heavy duty on encapsulation, but you can use this to see how some things would work with encapsulation. So exactly what can you view and see with certain access modifiers on. So in addition to that exercise, here's another exercise. Create a class called password. So its constructor should take 2 values, a username and a password. You should have a method called verify that checks if a password matches the password that you have. If it does, then you can print extra information like an age, a name, etc. Then the extra information should not be accessed without verification. So let's see if you can figure this out. And that's pretty much all we have for today. So make sure to do these 2 exercises, and we'll see you in the next lecture.